Welcome back. Our legal counsel, Charlie O'Hara, joining us once again on this Wednesday morning. If you have a question, 436-1212 is the number to dial. Good morning, Charlie.
Good morning.
And happy Halloween.
Thank you. Happy Halloween to you.
It's been a fun morning here. We have been eating a little too much sugar, I'm afraid. Or at least I have anyways.
I think there's some goblins or Captain America outside.
We do have a few behind us in the studio. We're going to be talking about Halloween safety. And speaking of Halloween safety, you and I talking before we came back out from that break, if you have a party, you're having trick-or-treaters over, you know, we're talking about liability. As a homeowner or as someone who is throwing a party, where do you fall into that in case someone was hurt or something was destroyed?
It's not a terrible problem, but I suppose if you do something that you could reasonably foresee that somebody could get hurt doing, then you could be liable. I mean, if you do something that's dangerous or you think somebody can get hurt, don't do that. I mean, for any kind of an injury, you've got to be able to see that it's going to happen. I mean, accidents do happen, but if you have knowledge that it could happen in that instance, it's a little bit dangerous. You shouldn't be doing it. I mean, scaring somebody and causing a heart attack, I don't think is really foreseeable.
Right.
But I mean, if you have something that could get hurt doing it, you need to be careful. If you've got stairway that people could fall down, and you should have known that, you need to make sure it's lit and they're careful.
Well, and I'm sure you've seen situations like this before. You know, you think you're having friends over, maybe even family, and it doesn't always go the way you planned. No,
especially you've got to be very, I mean, people think, well, they're my family or my friends, they won't sue me or something like that. I haven't ever found that to be true. I found it to be just the opposite.
Okay. Okay, so everyone be careful this Halloween. Thanks,
okay,
Charlie.
Sure.
We have a phone call on the line. We'll go ahead and get to that. Hi there. What's your question for Charlie?
Yes, I would like to know if you can file for custody pending a DNA test before the child is born.
Before the child is born?
Yes.
I don't know that you're going to be able to file for custody before the child is born. The child has to be born before you actually get custody, but there's a DNA test and the conclusions come out, well then you can have an argument about who has custody of the child. I mean, that would make sense, but I mean, before the child is born, nobody has custody except the mother. It's in the mother's womb, I assume. So unless you're using a surrogate or something like that, so it would be with the mother, and when it's born and you have the DNA test, then you'll determine who has custody.
Okay, thank you, Charlie. Thank you for calling in. We have time for another caller this morning. Hi there. What's your question for Charlie?
My question is, I got a speeding ticket and a no proof of insurance ticket, and when the county clerk set my ticket for court, they got my name wrong, and I want to know how I can change it.
Well, I mean, if it's set for court, you just got to go, and your name's wrong, you can call the clerk and tell them your name's wrong, or if you're in front of the judge, you can tell the judge, they'll usually ask you if that's your correct name. Say, no, it's not, they've written it down wrong, here's my correct name. I don't think there's any liability or any criminal activity if they accidentally put the wrong letters on your name. I mean, that happens to a lot of us. O'Hara becomes O'Hara at times, and so that happens to a lot of people. You just need to call up and get that straightened out.
So it's not going to affect the case one way or the other then?
I wouldn't think so. I mean, they take your Social Security number, they take your date of birth, your height and your weight, usually your driver's license number if you have a different one than your Social Security. So, I mean, they're going to know who you are. The fact that they misstated your name a little bit isn't a big deal.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I typically get Karen quite often,
yes.
So I can see how sometimes it does happen. Good question, though. Thank you so very much. Yeah, and those cases, too, a lot of times when it comes to going back to the custody case, you know, once the baby is born, can you go to court immediately, or you have to wait for the DNA test to come back?
Well, I think you're going to have to wait for the DNA test. Obviously, if it's I mean, if the mother or the father, if everybody agrees they're the parents, well, then you can go to court.
Okay.
But if there's a fight, if there's a factual disagreement, if the mother's saying that's not the father and he's saying I am the father or vice versa, well, then it's a factual determination. You're going to have a hearing.
Okay. Thank you, Charlie. Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
Have a good week.